I was exhausted. My feet hurt. My head pounded. My patience was gone. I pushed through the glass doors of my office building and almost slammed straight into a tall man in a dark suit. "Move," I snapped. "You didn't?" He looked down at me calmly. "Excuse me?" "Excuse you," I shot back. "You're blocking the exit." I wasn't aware this was your personal doorway. Something in my chest cracked open. "Of course you weren't," I said loudly. "Men like you never are." His jaw tightened. "Men like me? Rich, arrogant, dressed like the world owes you something." People slowed down. I felt their eyes. He glanced at the crowd, then back at me. "You don't know me." "I don't need to," I said. "I know the type. You think money buys respect. And you think shouting makes you right?" My face burned. I stepped closer. "Respect is earned, not bought with a fancy watch and a driver waiting outside." A black car idled by the curb. He followed my gaze. "You're making a scene." "Good," I said. "Maybe someone needs to." He studied me like I was a problem he hadn't solved yet. "What's your name?" he asked. "Why?" I laughed bitterly. "So you can complain to someone?" "I don't work for you." Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something else. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Here's something else that's interesting," I went on. "People like you walk into buildings like this and make decisions that ruin lives. Layoffs, cuts, restructuring. And then you go home and sleep fine." His voice lowered. "You assume a lot." "I've lived a lot." Silence hung between us. He glanced at the company logo behind me. "You work here?" "Yes." He gave a slow nod. "I see." "Good," I said. "Then see this too. We are not numbers. We are not disposable." A few co-workers stood near the door now, watching. One of them whispered my name. I ignored it. The man straightened his cuffs. "You're very passionate. You're very entitled." A small muscle ticked in his cheek. "You have no idea who I am," he said. "I don't care who you are." That was the moment. That was the sentence I wished I could swallow back. My manager rushed outside, pale and breathless. "There you are," my manager said to him. Not to me. To him. My stomach dropped. "I've been looking everywhere," my manager continued. "I'm so sorry about the confusion, sir. We didn't expect you until tomorrow, sir." My throat went dry. The man's eyes never left mine. "It's fine," he said calmly. "I enjoy surprises." My manager forced a laugh. "Everyone is excited to meet you. The board is upstairs." "Board?" My pulse roared in my ears. "This is..." My manager turned to me, panic flashing across my face mirrored in my manager's eyes. "This is our new majority investor." The world tilted. "Investor? No, not just investor. This is Adrian," my manager added carefully. "The man who just acquired controlling shares." Acquired? Controlling? I stared at him. Adrian? The man I had just publicly accused of ruining lives. My life. His gaze sharpened slightly. "We've met." My manager looked confused. "You have." "She had some feedback," he said. Heat rushed to my face. I didn't know," I whispered. "No," he agreed softly. "You didn't." The silence felt brutal. My manager cleared my throat. "I apologize on behalf of the company." Adrian held up a hand. "No need." He stepped closer to me. Too close. "I appreciate honesty," he said quietly. "Even when it's misplaced." My chest tightened. "I wasn't trying to." "To what?" he asked. I swallowed. "To insult you." "But you did." "Yes." My manager looked ready to faint. Adrian studied me for a long moment. "Tell me," he said, voice low enough that only I could hear, "if I had told you who I was first, would you have still said all that?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because the answer was yes. And that scared me. He gave a small nod like he already knew. "That's what I thought." He stepped back. "Let's go upstairs," he said to my manager. They started walking toward the entrance. Then he paused. He turned back to me. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded worse. It sounded certain. They disappeared inside. My coworkers rushed toward me. "What did you do?" someone whispered. "Are you insane? Do you know how powerful he is?" I felt the power drain out of my legs. "I didn't know," I said weakly. "You yelled at him," someone said. "In front of everyone." I could still see his calm face. His controlled voice. I had looked emotional. Wild. Small. My manager came back down a few minutes later. "Go home," my manager said sharply. Am I fired? I don't know, my manager replied. Just go. I walked to the bus stop in a blur. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages. Are you okay? What were you thinking? Delete that video. Video. My hand shook. I opened social media. There it was. A clip of me pointing at him. Shouting. Money can't buy respect. Thousands of views already. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might collapse. I replayed the video once. Twice. I looked angry. Desperate. He looked calm. Powerful. The comments started pouring in. Who is she? Brave girl. Stupid employee. Fire her. I locked my phone. The bus arrived. I sat by the window and stared at my reflection. I ruined everything, I whispered to myself. But deep down another voice answered. No. Something just began. I didn't know how much my life would change because of that moment. I didn't know how many times I would replay his question. Would you have still said it? Yes, I would have. And that truth scared me more than losing my job. Because it meant I wasn't just angry at him. I was angry at the world. And tomorrow I would have to face the man who now controlled my future. I had humiliated the wrong millionaire. And he hadn't raised his voice once. That was the part that kept me awake all night. I barely slept. My phone kept lighting up beside my bed. By morning the video had spread everywhere. When I walked into the office the lobby felt colder. Conversation stopped. Eyes followed me. Private meeting. Top floor, someone whispered. I didn't answer. I stepped into the elevator alone. My reflection looked pale. Hold it, someone said before the doors closed. My manager slipped inside. You really did it, my manager muttered. I know. You embarrassed him. I know. You embarrassed all of us. That one hurt. I didn't mean to, I said quietly. You don't think intention matters, do you? My manager snapped. Power matters. The elevator dinged. The top floor felt silent. Expensive. Controlled. I was led into a glass conference room. He was already there. Adrian stood by the window, hands behind his back. He didn't turn immediately. I felt small again. Sit, he said calmly. I sat. My manager stayed near the door. I'll wait outside, my manager said quickly and left. The door shut. Silence. Adrian finally faced me. No anger. No smirk. Just calm. Too calm. Good morning, he said. Good morning. My voice shook. Did you sleep well? The question confused me. Not really. I assumed that. He walked to the table and placed a tablet down. The screen showed the video. Paused. My face mid-shout. I don't need to watch it again, I whispered. I wasn't planning to, he replied. Silence stretched. I expected you to fire me, I said. Did you? Yes. Why? Because I disrespected you. He studied me. You think this is about respect? Isn't it? He sat across from me. It's about control, he said evenly. My stomach tightened. You lost control, he continued. In public. I know. And I did not. His words weren't cruel. They were factual. That difference matters, he added. I looked down at my hands. I'm sorry, I said. I shouldn't have shouted. Why did you? He asked. I hesitated. Because I'm tired. Of me. Of everything. He leaned back slightly. Explain. My father's medical bills are drowning me. My rent went up. Half the staff thought layoffs were coming because of you. I saw the car. The suit. I swallowed. I exploded. You decided I was the villain. Yes. And that made you feel powerful? For a second. And now? Now I feel stupid. Silence. He didn't rush to respond. That silence hurt more than if he had yelled. You disappointed me, he said finally. My chest tightened. I don't even know you, I whispered. Exactly. That word landed heavy. You're intelligent, he continued. Your record here is strong. I reviewed it last night. You reviewed me? Yes. And I expected better judgment. Something inside me cracked. Not anger. Shame. I thought you were different, he said quietly. You don't know me. I know potential when I see it. The room felt smaller. I don't need your approval, I said, but my voice was weak. Everyone needs something, he replied. I looked at him then. Really looked. No mockery. No cruelty. Just disappointment. I didn't mean to risk anyone's job, I said. You did, he answered calmly. The board considered removing you immediately. My heart dropped. But I asked. But I said no. I stared. Why? I whispered. Because firing you would prove your point. I didn't understand. You accused me of using power to silence people, he explained. If I fired you publicly, that is exactly what I would be doing. I felt heat rise to my face. I don't want fear in this company, he continued. I want discipline. I can be disciplined. Can you? Yes. He held my gaze. This is your only warning, he said. The words echoed. One more public outburst, he added, and I will not protect you. Protect. The word stung. I don't need protection. You needed it yesterday. Silence again. I won't embarrass you again, I said. This isn't about me. Then what is it about? It's about who you decide to become. That hit deeper than any insult. He stood. Return to work, he said. That's it. For now. I stood too. My legs felt weak. As I reached the door, his voice stopped me. One more thing. I turned. If I had introduced myself first yesterday, he said quietly, would you have still said those words? My throat tightened. I wanted to lie. I didn't. Yes, I admitted. He nodded slowly. Then your problem isn't me, he said. It's your anger. I left the room shaking. Whispers followed me through the office. What happened? Are you fired? Did he yell? No, I said softly. That confused them more. My manager pulled me aside. You're lucky, my manager hissed. I know. You almost cost us everything. I know. Do you? Yes. The day dragged. No one sat near me at lunch. I heard my name in corners. Unstable. Emotional. Risky. By evening I felt hollow. When I reached home, I locked the door and leaned against it. My apartment felt smaller than ever. I turned on the shower and stepped inside fully clothed. The water soaked through my shirt. I slid down the wall. I'm so tired, I whispered. Tears mixed with water. I thought yelling had made me strong. It hadn't. It exposed how powerless I felt. I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at unpaid bills on my table. At hospital calls I couldn't ignore. At a life that felt stuck. He had just been the nearest target. I sat there until the water ran cold. When I finally stood, I looked at myself in the mirror. Red eyes. Swollen face. Who are you? I asked softly. Not brave. Not powerful. Just reactive. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. I hesitated. Then opened it. One sentence. Control your fire. Or we'll control you. No name. But I knew. I stared at the screen for a long time. Shame burned. But something else did too. Not anger. Something quieter. Something harder. I wiped my face. Tomorrow I would walk back into that office. Not to fight. Not to prove him wrong. But to prove myself right. Because if I didn't change, I would always be the girl in that video. Shouting. Powerless. And I refused to stay her. I did not cry the next morning. I woke up before my alarm. I stared at the ceiling and said it out loud. Enough. No drama. No tears. Just a decision. I got dressed in my simplest outfit. Neutral. Clean. Calm. When I walked into the office, the whispers started again. Look who's here. She still has a job? I kept walking. My manager stopped me near my desk. You're early, my manager said. I have work to fix. Pause. That's good. I know. I opened my laptop and pulled up every report connected to my department. Numbers. Budgets. Forecasts. Mistakes. I found 3 small errors within the first hour. I corrected them quietly and sent revised files. My manager leaned over my desk later. You already fixed this? Yes. I was going to review it. You still can. A slow nod. Keep this up, my manager muttered. I will. By noon I felt different. Focused. Controlled. Not defensive. Adrian walked through the department in the afternoon. The room shifted when he entered. Chairs straightened. Voices lowered. He stopped near my desk. I kept typing. You're early today, he said. Yes. Why? I have things to improve. He watched my screen. Like. Efficiency gaps in last quarter's logistics budget. A slight pause. Show me. I turned the screen toward him. I explained the pattern I noticed. No emotion. Just data. He asked one question. If this is true, why did no one catch it? They weren't looking for it. And you were? Yes. Silence. You stayed late yesterday, he said. Yes. Why? Because I'm not losing again. His gaze sharpened slightly. Losing what? Myself. That answer surprised even me. He didn't smile. But something shifted in his expression. Continue, he said. And he walked away. No praise. No criticism. Just observation. That felt heavier than either. After work, I didn't go home. I went to a small bookstore near my apartment. I bought 2 finance books and one on leadership. The cashier looked at the stack. Big plans? The cashier asked. Big correction, I replied. That night I studied until my eyes hurt. Not because he told me to. Because I was tired of feeling small. The next day my coworker leaned against my desk. You're trying really hard, my coworker said. Yes. To impress him? No. Then why? To stop embarrassing myself. A quiet laugh. That ship already sailed. I looked up slowly. Not permanently. My coworker hesitated. You really think you can just change? Yes. How? By shutting up and leveling up. That ended the conversation. Later that week I was called into a strategy meeting. Normally I just took notes. This time Adrian looked directly at me. Your department handles vendor negotiations, he said. Yes. What's your assessment of our current contracts? The room went silent. People glanced at me. Waiting. Testing. I inhaled slowly. They're safe, I said. Safe? He repeated. Yes. But not strong. Explain. We prioritize stability over leverage. We avoid risk. That keeps us comfortable. It also keeps us average. A few eyebrows lifted. And you suggest? He asked. We renegotiate 2 mid-tier contracts. Not the biggest ones. We test leverage where the loss won't destroy us. Why mid-tier? Because if we fail, we survive. If we win, we gain data and confidence. Silence again. My manager shifted nervously. Adrian didn't blink. You're suggesting controlled aggression, he said. Yes. And you believe you can handle that negotiation? My heartbeat sped up. Yes. Another pause. Prepare a proposal, he said finally. The meeting moved on. No applause. But no dismissal. Afterward, my manager pulled me aside. You just volunteered for pressure. I know. You sure about this? No. Then why? Because safe hasn't worked for me. That night, I worked until the cleaning staff came. One of them smiled at me. Still here? Yes. Promotion coming? Maybe. Or maybe not. I smiled back. Either way, I'll be ready. When I finally left, I noticed someone standing near the elevator. Adrian. You're still here? He said. Yes. Why? I told you. I'm not losing again. He studied me carefully. You think this is about me winning over you? He asked. No. Then what is it? It's about me not hating who I see in the mirror. Silence filled the hallway. You're intense, he said quietly. I was reckless, I corrected. Now I'm focused. And if I remove you from the negotiation? Then I'll prepare anyway. Why? Because skill doesn't disappear if you're not chosen. His jaw tightened slightly. You're different this week, he said. Yes. Why? Because anger is loud. Growth is quiet. A long pause. I don't want your approval, I added. I didn't offer it. I know. His eyes held mine. For what it's worth, he said slowly, I respect discipline. The word respect felt heavy. I didn't smile. Thank you, I said evenly. He stepped into the elevator. Before the doors closed, he asked one more question. Are you doing this to prove me wrong? The doors almost shut. I answered before they sealed. No. They closed completely. I stood there alone. I wasn't trying to defeat him. I wasn't trying to impress him. I was trying to rebuild something I lost the day I shouted. Control. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence at the top of the page. Control your fire. I underlined it twice. I didn't know where this path would lead. I didn't know if I would fail again. But I knew one thing. I would never again let someone's calm silence make me feel small. If I felt small, it would only be because I chose to stay that way. And I wasn't choosing that anymore. The charity event felt expensive. Soft music. Crystal glasses. Smiles that didn't reach eyes. I almost didn't go. You have to attend, my manager said earlier that week. Visibility matters. I prefer spreadsheets, I replied. Tonight you prefer donors. So I stood near a tall table, holding sparkling water like it was armor. You look uncomfortable, a gentle voice said beside me. I turned. An elegant older woman stood there in a simple navy dress. No heavy jewelry. Just calm confidence. I'm fine, I said automatically. That was a rehearsed answer, she replied with a small smile. I blinked. I don't like crowds, I admitted. Neither do I, she said. Too many masks. I almost laughed. Then why come? I asked. Because sometimes impact requires presence. Her eyes were sharp, observant. Do you work here? She asked. Yes. Do you enjoy it? The question caught me off guard. It's complicated. Complicated is honest, she said. What do you actually want? Not what position. Not what salary. What do I want? I hesitated. I want stability, I said slowly. I want to stop worrying about hospital bills. Her expression softened. Someone ill? My father. I'm sorry. I am too, I whispered. She didn't offer pity. She just nodded. And beyond survival? She asked. I want to lead, I said before I could stop myself. Her eyebrow lifted slightly. Lead what? Myself first, I replied. Then maybe something bigger. She smiled fully now. That's a rare order. What is? Most people want power before discipline. I studied her more carefully. You speak like you've seen both, I said. I have. She picked up a small brochure from the table and tapped it lightly. Why did you join this company? She asked. I needed income. That's not why you stayed. I paused. No. Then why stay? Because I want to prove something. To whom? The question hit deeper than I expected. Myself, I said quietly. And, she pressed gently. I swallowed. And maybe to someone who thinks I'm reckless. Her eyes sharpened slightly. Ah, she murmured. The investor. I stiffened. You know about that? Everyone does. Heat rushed to my face. I handled it badly. Did you? I shouted. Yes. In public. Yes. That's bad. She tilted her head. Why did you shout? I felt cornered. By him? By life. Silence settled between us. That makes more sense, she said softly. I looked at her carefully. You're not judging me. Should I? Most people do. Most people are insecure. The music shifted to something slower. Voices around us blended into noise. Tell me, she said, lowering her voice, if you had known who he was, would you have stayed silent? I stared at her. That question again. No, I admitted. She smiled faintly. Good. I blinked. Good? Fear-based silence is more dangerous than public anger. I didn't expect that. But control matters, she added. Fire without direction burns everything. I'm learning that. Are you? Yes. How? I study after work. I volunteer for pressure. I measure my words. She nodded slowly. And what do you fear most? Failing, I said instantly. Failing what? Failing my father. Failing myself. Proving everyone right about me. And what do they say about you? That I'm emotional. Are you? Yes. Is that weakness? I thought it was. She looked at me carefully. Emotion is fuel, she said. Weakness is lack of control. The words settled inside me. You have fire, she continued. I can see it. I felt exposed. Fire can build cities, she said softly. Or reduce them to ash. I nodded. I don't want to destroy things anymore. Then don't. It's not that simple. It is, she replied calmly. Choose direction. Before I could answer, someone approached us. Ma'am, a staff member said respectfully, they're ready for you. Ma'am? The staff member looked at me briefly, then back at her with clear deference. I'll be there, she said. The staff member walked away. I frowned slightly. You're important here, I said. She smiled gently. I have influence. What kind? The kind that observes before it acts. Something about her confidence felt familiar. May I ask your name? I said. She held my gaze. I'm Adrian's mother. The world tilted slightly. Oh. I straightened immediately. I didn't realize. I know. Embarrassment flooded me. I'm sorry if I said anything inappropriate. You were honest, she corrected. That doesn't excuse disrespect. Respect isn't silence, she said evenly. I didn't know how to respond. You expected me to dislike you, she continued. Yes. Why? Because I embarrassed your son. A small smile touched her lips. My son has embarrassed himself plenty of times. I blinked. He doesn't look like someone who makes mistakes. He does, she said quietly. He just hides them well. The room felt different now. You don't hate me? I asked carefully. No. Why? Because I see hunger in you. Hunger. For control. For growth. I swallowed. And you don't think I'm a threat? To what? To him. She stepped slightly closer. I don't fear strong women, she said. I raised one in myself. Her eyes softened. And I would rather my son stand beside fire than beside ice. The words hit me harder than expected. I don't understand, I whispered. You will. Pause. I hope you keep choosing discipline, she added. I am. Good. She reached out and gently squeezed my hand. Her touch was warm, grounded. I look forward to seeing what you become, she said. Not if, when. Then she walked toward the stage. People parted for her. Respect. Real respect. I stood frozen. Adrian appeared beside me minutes later. You met my mother? He said. Yes. And? She's different. He gave a faint smile. She usually is. She didn't yell at me, I said quietly. No, he replied. She wouldn't. Why? Because she sees more than most. I glanced toward the stage where she now spoke confidently about leadership and responsibility. She said I have fire, I murmured. He looked at me carefully. She's not wrong. The air between us shifted. She also said fire can destroy, I added. He held my gaze. Yes, he said softly. It can. Silence stretched. Why was she talking to me? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then he said something that stayed with me long after the music faded. She doesn't waste time on people who don't matter. And then he walked away. Vanessa arrived on a Monday. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. Perfect smile. I've heard so much about this place, she said brightly during the morning introduction. I stood near the back of the conference room. And I look forward to refining its direction, she added. Refining. The word felt deliberate. After the meeting, she walked straight toward me. You must be the passionate one, she said softly. I work in vendor strategy, I replied evenly. Yes, she said with a small smile. I've seen the video. Of course she had. I hope you've developed restraint. I have, I said. She tilted her head slightly. Good. Emotional instability can be expensive at this level. At this level. I held her gaze. I focus on results, I answered. As you should, she replied. Especially if you want to stay. The message was clear. Later that day, I overheard her in the break room. I'm not questioning her intelligence, she said to someone. Just her temperament. Pause. We can't have volatility near leadership. Silence followed. Then a quiet agreement. I stepped in. The conversation stopped. Oh, she said lightly. We were just discussing structure. Of course, I replied. She studied me. You don't mind feedback, do you? I prefer it direct. Very well, she said. You're talented. But talent without polish doesn't scale. And polish is inherited? I asked calmly. A faint smile touched her lips. Sometimes. The old fire flickered inside me. I almost snapped. Instead, I inhaled slowly. Noted, I said. She looked almost disappointed. You're quiet today, she observed. I'm learning. From whom? Myself. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Ambitious answer. The week continued like that. Small comments. Subtle digs. I'm surprised you handled that call so smoothly, she said after a negotiation. Why? I asked. Growth can be unpredictable. Another day. Adrian values composure, she murmured near my desk. He prefers women who understand his level. His level? I repeated. Yes. Education. Background. Family reputation. I closed my laptop slowly. My performance speaks, I said. For now, she replied. That night I stayed late again. Not to escape her. To outgrow her. The next morning my manager approached me carefully. She requested access to your negotiation files. Why? She said she wants oversight. Oversight or control? I asked. Pause. I don't know. I nodded. Give her access. You're not upset? No. That surprised my manager. Why not? Because transparency doesn't scare me. Later that afternoon, I passed by a partially closed office door. Vanessa's voice drifted through. I'm telling you she's unstable, she whispered. One emotional trigger and she explodes. Silence. We can't risk that near long-term expansion. My chest tightened. She already embarrassed leadership once, she continued. I stood frozen. She needs to be phased out gradually. Phased out. I walked away quietly. Not a single word. Back at my desk, my hands trembled. Old anger rose fast. Loud. I almost marched straight into her office. Instead, I opened my spreadsheet. Numbers don't lie. People do. Adrian called a strategy session later that week. Vanessa spoke confidently about restructuring vendor chains. We need refinement, she said smoothly. Less emotional decision-making. Her eyes flicked toward me briefly. I didn't react. When it was my turn, I presented updated projections. Clear. Precise. Calculated. She interrupted halfway. Are these numbers verified? She asked. Yes. By whom? By data. A few quiet chuckles around the table. Her smile tightened. Adrian looked between us. Continue, he said to me. I did. When I finished, he asked one question. If we follow this plan, what is our risk exposure? 8% short-term, I answered. 4% long-term. And if we follow Vanessa's? 6% short-term, I said carefully. But 12% long-term due to dependency risk. The room fell silent. Vanessa spoke quickly. That's speculative. It's modeled, I replied. Models fail. So do assumptions. The air shifted. Adrian leaned back slightly. Both proposals have merit, he said calmly. We'll evaluate further. Meeting dismissed. Vanessa walked beside me afterward. You're bold, she said quietly. I'm prepared. You think preparation replaces pedigree? I think results replace doubt. Her smile faded slightly. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm not playing. She stopped walking. You really believe you belong here? Yes. Even beside him? I faced her fully. I don't stand beside anyone, I said evenly. I stand on my own. Her eyes flashed briefly. You're still emotional, she whispered. No, I replied calmly. I'm controlled. That difference mattered. She studied me carefully. You're changing, she said. Yes. That won't save you. From what? Reality. I held her gaze. Reality rewards competence. A beat of silence. You underestimate me, she said softly. I don't underestimate anyone. She leaned closer. I come from power, she whispered. I understand how decisions are made behind doors. So do I answered. Do you? Yes. How? By listening. She pulled back slightly. And what have you heard? That insecurity speaks louder than confidence. Her jaw tightened. For a moment I thought she would explode. She didn't. Instead she smiled again. Cool. Polished. We'll see, she said. That night I reviewed every contract twice. I anticipated every objection. I prepared for every whisper. Because now I understood something clearly. Battles aren't always loud. Some are won in silence. The next morning I walked into the office and saw Vanessa laughing with two board members. Her hand rested lightly on one of their arms. Connection. Influence. Strategy. She noticed me watching. She smiled. Then she said something I barely caught as I passed. Let's see how long she lasts. I didn't react. I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I simply kept walking. Because I had learned something important. Silence can be stronger than screaming. And I was just getting started. I started staying later at the office. Not because anyone asked me to. Not because I was trying to impress Adrian. Because I had work to do, on myself. I enrolled in night courses in finance, leadership, and corporate strategy. I didn't tell anyone. Not my manager. Not my coworkers. Not Adrian. At first it felt strange. Sitting in a classroom after 12 hours of work. Listening. Taking notes. Learning new ways to see numbers, trends, risks. Each session stretched me. Every lecture felt like a private workout for my brain. I stopped spending on things I didn't need. No fancy coffee. No weekend splurges. I saved what I could. I started improving my appearance, subtle changes. Hair, posture, wardrobe choices. Not for him. Not for anyone. For me. Evenings were long. Exhausting. But I noticed the changes creeping in. My voice became steadier in meetings. My ideas sharper. I stopped reacting impulsively. I started speaking with intent. One afternoon, a budget review session turned into a subtle test. Vanessa presented a new plan with her usual polished confidence. Everyone nodded along. I waited. I analyzed quietly. When Adrian turned to me, he asked, "What do you think?" The room fell silent. Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. A flicker of surprise. I inhaled. The projections are accurate, I said calmly. But I suggest an adjustment to the mid-tier contracts. Reduces exposure while increasing leverage. I laid out my reasoning with clear examples. Data. Risk assessments. Contingency plans. Each point delivered confidently without hesitation. Adrian leaned back in his chair. His gaze measured me. Quiet approval flickered in his eyes. Vanessa didn't speak. She just watched, slightly stunned. The meeting ended. People filtered out. Whispers floated. I ignored them. I walked back to my desk and closed my laptop slowly. Victory didn't feel loud. It felt quiet, solid, real. I was no longer the girl who had yelled at a millionaire. I was becoming someone else. Controlled, measured, capable. That evening, I returned home and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My posture was better. My eyes calmer. My expression deliberate. I whispered to myself, this is who I can be. It wasn't about revenge anymore. I realized that. Anger burned less with every calculated step. Power, real power, was what I wanted now. Not to humiliate anyone. Not to shout. But to control outcomes. Influence decisions. Shape events quietly, effectively. The next week, I started noticing how colleagues began consulting me. Small questions at first. Can you review this? Your opinion matters here. Vanessa's usual sneers felt softer. She still tried subtle digs, but they barely scratched me anymore. Adrian called me into his office one Friday afternoon. I've noticed your work, he said. You've changed. Yes, I said, careful not to reveal more than necessary. Confident, he added. Measured. Focused, I corrected. He paused, studying me like he always did. You're no longer reactive. No, I said softly. I control myself now. He nodded slowly. Good. That is the mark of someone ready to lead. A thrill ran through me. Not arrogance. Not triumph. Pure recognition. I had become someone people listened to. Even him. Continue what you're doing, he said. Discipline matters more than talent without it. I left his office that day with a quiet smile. Not the kind that announces victory. The kind that whispers, I am here. I am capable. I am rising. At night, I returned to my courses. Notes sprawled across my desk. Calculations, strategies, leadership principles. Every concept I mastered added weight to my confidence. I was transforming silently. I no longer thought about shouting. Or humiliation. Or old fears. I thought about control. And influence. And the quiet satisfaction of knowing I was shaping my own path. Power wasn't about fear. It was about preparation. Patience. Precision. And I had begun to wield it. By the time I closed my books that night, I knew something fundamental had changed. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was evolving. And nothing or no one would shake that. Small, careful, deliberate steps. That was my transformation. And it was only the beginning. I noticed it first. A subtle error buried in Vanessa's investment projections. Not obvious at first glance. But enough to tip the balance if left unchecked. I could have stayed quiet. Pretended I didn't see it. Let her take the risk. I didn't. Board review day arrived. The room was full. Executives murmured. Vanessa smiled confidently, expecting applause for her initiative. Adrian sat at the head of the table. Calm, observant, silent. When the discussion turned to Vanessa's plan, she outlined it smoothly. Confident. Convincing. I waited. Then I spoke. Excuse me, I said softly, projecting clearly. I've reviewed the numbers. Vanessa blinked. A flicker of irritation crossed her face. Yes. Adrian prompted. I found a discrepancy in projected returns, I continued. It affects mid-tier contracts more than anticipated. Vanessa opened her mouth, but I didn't pause. I've recalculated projections based on corrected assumptions, I added, turning the tablet toward the group. Graphs, figures, and clear notes. Precise. Clean. Transparent. A quiet hush fell. Vanessa tried to interject. That's not entirely accurate. I didn't flinch. These calculations are verifiable. I've documented each assumption and source. Adrian leaned forward slightly. His gaze sharpened. Explain the impact, he said. I did. Step by step. Short sentences. Concrete numbers. Real consequences. When I finished, I looked up. The room was silent. Vanessa's confidence faltered. The usual shine in her eyes dimmed. You're saying my projections are off? She asked, voice tight. I'm saying the corrected figures present a more accurate risk assessment, I replied evenly. Adrian sat back. Expression unreadable. Interesting, he said finally. Thank you for the clarification. Vanessa tried again, pointing to her spreadsheet. But these assumptions... I've cross-referenced them, I interrupted gently. The model is sound. The previous projection overestimates returns by 8% short-term. Silence. Adrian's eyes lingered on me. Something unspoken passed between us. Recognition. Trust. Vanessa's jaw tightened. She opened her mouth, then closed it. You've exposed a significant oversight, Adrian said quietly. This is why we value diligence and transparency. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Vanessa's usual smirk vanished. She glanced down at her notes. I didn't celebrate. Didn't smile. Didn't gloat. I simply sat. Quiet. Focused. Controlled. After the meeting, Adrian pulled me aside. You handled that well, he said quietly. I only presented the facts, I said. And did so without emotion, he observed. Impressive. Vanessa was still lingering near the doorway watching us. Her posture stiff, her confidence shaken. She underestimated you, Adrian said softly. Yes, I admitted. But that's not why I spoke up. Why then? Because the company comes before ego, I said. He nodded slowly. Good. That is what separates impulsive actions from calculated influence. The next week I began noticing subtle changes. Confidential projects were routed to me first. Questions from Adrian came directly to my desk. Vanessa avoided assigning me tasks. She whispered to colleagues, casting doubt, but I remained silent. Karma didn't announce itself. It moved quietly. It didn't shout. It simply shifted the room. The balance. The power. And I kept moving forward. Day by day. Step by step. Because I understood now. Victory doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes, it comes in the hush after truth is spoken. I watched Vanessa from across the room one afternoon. Her usual polished grin felt brittle. She no longer approached meetings with effortless control. She no longer assumed dominance. I didn't feel triumph. Just focus. The quiet shift was more satisfying than any shouted victory ever could have been. Karma had its own pace. And it moved quietly, just like I had learned to move. The office was quiet when he asked me to stay. Can you wait a few minutes? Adrian's voice was low, almost hesitant. I nodded. My desk felt colder than usual. Of course, I said. I expected criticism. Another lecture. A reminder of my past outburst. He didn't start that way. Sit, he said, motioning to the chair across from him. I did, keeping my posture straight, my expression neutral. He closed the door behind him. The hum of the city outside faded. I wanted to talk about that day, he began. The video? I asked quietly. Yes, he admitted. The day you yelled at me. I waited. I misjudged you, he said slowly. I saw only anger. Not everything else behind it. I blinked. My chest tightened. You mean? I didn't consider the stress you were under, he continued. Your circumstances. Your struggles. I assumed hostility where there was pain. The honesty shocked me. I had never imagined him regretting anything. You're apologizing, I whispered. Yes, he said simply. I misread you. And I'm sorry. Silence settled. I didn't know how to respond. I also want you to know, he added, I respect your growth. The way you've handled yourself since then, it hasn't gone unnoticed. Hearing that felt heavier than any praise. I didn't smile. I didn't soften. I stayed steady. But inside, my heart felt confused. I had started this journey angry at him. Furious even. I had blamed him for my embarrassment, my powerlessness. Now, I saw him as human. Not the untouchable millionaire. Not the man who could ruin my life with a single word. Human. Flawed. Capable of regret. You respect me? I asked carefully. Yes, he said. Because you've earned it. Not because of your talent alone, but because of how you've controlled yourself. How you've chosen discipline over anger. I nodded slowly. Words didn't come. I want you to understand something, he continued. I didn't act out of indifference that day. I just didn't know what to expect from you. You surprised me. I swallowed. The weight of his honesty pressed on me. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But it doesn't erase what happened. No, he admitted. It shouldn't. But I hope it changes how you see me. Not as an adversary, but someone who can misjudge and learn just like anyone else. Something shifted in the room. I studied him, really looked at him. The faint lines near his eyes, the way he paused before choosing words. The way he wasn't hiding behind arrogance. Respect. I realized it wasn't pity. Not even kindness. Respect. I didn't melt. I didn't fall. I remained composed. But my thoughts betrayed me. I remembered the fire in my chest the day I had yelled. The shame that followed. The long nights of studying, learning, growing. And now, looking at him, I saw that fire reflected back in a different way. Not in anger. Not in cruelty. In recognition. "You've changed," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. "I had to." He nodded. "And yet, you're still the same person who stood up, who refused to be silenced." "I suppose," I said. "Good," he murmured. "That matters." I felt the tension in the room shift. "I just wanted to tell you that I regret my assumptions," he added. "And I hope we can move forward, understanding each other better." I didn't know what to say. "Thank you," I finally whispered. He gave a faint nod. For a moment, silence stretched between us. I wanted to speak, to ask questions, to challenge him. But instead, I simply absorbed it. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about understanding. A human moment. A quiet acknowledgement that people could misjudge, and then change. He stood, signaling the end of the conversation. "Good night," he said softly. "Good night," I replied. When the door closed behind him, I sat back in my chair. Alone yet not the same. My anger had fueled me for weeks. My silence had sharpened me. And now, something new had settled inside. Confusion. Respect. Recognition. I had never imagined that someone I once saw as the enemy could feel regret. And yet here it was. Heavy. Honest. Real. I stared at my reflection in the darkened office window. The girl who had shouted at a millionaire was gone. In her place, someone stronger. Someone steady. Someone who saw human complexity and could accept it. And for the first time, I didn't want to fight him. I only wanted to understand. To grow. And to see what came next. I stood in the entryway of their house, staring at the marble floors and the chandelier that seemed too big for the room. My heels clicked softly as I followed her into the dining room. "You're nervous," she said gently, as if she could read my thoughts. It's a big house," I admitted. She laughed lightly. "It's a house. Not a test." Dinner was set perfectly. Candles flickered. The aroma of roasted vegetables and fresh bread filled the air. She poured wine into my glass, her movements calm and deliberate. "Tell me about yourself," she said. "Not your work. You've done enough of that lately." I hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I grew up struggling. My father is sick. I've had to take care of him, manage bills, balance work and study." Her eyes softened. "That must have been difficult." "It was," I admitted. "But I've learned resilience. I've learned to fight for what matters." "And what matters most to you?" she asked. I paused. "Security. Growth. Integrity. Not just for me but for those I care about." She smiled, a warm, knowing smile. "You have fire," she said. "But also control. That combination is rare." I felt a blush rise to my cheeks. She looked at Adrian, who sat quietly beside her. "Adrian," she said softly, "I want you to hear this." I froze slightly. If he ever deserves a woman who can challenge him, support him, and still keep her own fire burning, I would be proud to have her as a daughter-in-law. My glass nearly slipped from my hand. The room fell silent. Adrian's eyes widened slightly. His lips pressed into a thin line. He looked stunned. I didn't know what to say. Words felt too small. Too ordinary. Thank you," I managed finally, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded warmly. "It's not a judgment. It's recognition. You've proven yourself in ways most would never attempt." I swallowed hard. Heat rushed to my face. Adrian remained quiet, but I saw the shift in him. His usual composure was momentarily unsettled. "I didn't expect to hear that," he admitted softly. "Nor did I whispered. Dinner continued, but the energy had changed. Conversations felt lighter. Laughter more genuine. At one point she asked me about my dreams again. "I want independence," I said. "I want to lead my own life, make decisions I can stand by, without relying on anyone to save me." She nodded approvingly. "That's admirable. And it doesn't conflict with love or partnership. They can complement each other if chosen wisely." Adrian looked at me thoughtful. I realized in that moment this wasn't about anger anymore. Not about pride, revenge, or status. It was about choices. Choices that could define not just careers or relationships but lives. She smiled at me one last time before dessert. "You have my respect," she said. "And should it ever come to it, my pride is family." I felt a weight lift, replaced by something unfamiliar. A mixture of awe and responsibility. Adrian reached across the table and lightly touched my hand. "You've earned more than respect," he said softly. I didn't know what to feel. Confusion. Relief. The evening ended. I walked out into the cool night air, heart pounding. Her words echoed choices. And I realized more clearly than ever that the next steps were mine to make. Not anger. Not status. Choices. And the consequences, whatever they may be, would belong only to me. The gala glittered with lights, laughter, and champagne. I moved through the crowd carefully, keeping my posture straight, my smile controlled. Vanessa appeared across the room, perfectly poised, her eyes locked on me. Before I could reach my table, she stepped forward, voice loud enough to carry. "So this is how you manipulate your way up," she said, cutting through conversation. "Using Adrian, using his mother, to climb higher in the company." Heads turned. I stared. The old version of me would have snapped. Would have yelled. Would have humiliated myself. Not now. I inhaled slowly. Kept my gaze steady. "I'm not manipulating anyone," I said calmly. "I do my work. I present my results. Performance decides success here, not background, not whispers, not assumptions." Her lips tightened. She leaned closer. "Don't pretend you're innocent. You charm your way into favor and everyone applauds." "I don't charm," I replied evenly. "I act professionally. I contribute." "That's different." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some nodded. Others whispered. Vanessa's voice rose further. "You think your fire impresses people? You're playing a game with someone else's reputation." I stood taller. Calm. Measured. "I don't play games with reputations. I earn trust through results. Facts. Actions. Not assumptions or rumors." The air shifted. Adrian appeared quietly at my side. Not in front. Not shielding me. Beside me. Equal. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward him, then back at me. Surprise. Anger. Confusion. "I see," she said slowly. "You really think you belong here." "I know I do," I said. "And that knowledge comes from work, not connections." Adrian's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, almost imperceptibly. Support. Not rescue. The crowd sensed it. Some leaned closer. Whispers paused. Silence stretched. Vanessa's posture stiffened. Her polished mask faltered. Her anger became sharper, more visible. "You're arrogant," she hissed. "You think you're untouchable." I let a faint smile touch my lips. "Not because of anyone else," I said softly. "Because of myself." Her jaw clenched. She glanced around. Eyes darted to board members, to colleagues. I noticed some nod subtly at me. Respect. Acknowledgement. Recognition of composure under pressure. "You hide behind him," she spat, gesturing toward Adrian. "I stand beside him," I corrected. "But I do not hide. And neither does he." Her eyes widened slightly. The first crack. "You've changed," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Yes," I replied calmly. "And I continue to change every day." The room remained quiet, the tension palpable. I could feel the weight of observation, judgment, and scrutiny. But for the first time I didn't care. Vanessa's anger revealed her insecurity. Her attempts to intimidate, to dominate, collapsed quietly in the presence of control and truth. "You think you can outshine me?" she said finally. "I don't think," I said softly. "I do." Adrian's gaze met mine. No words. Just acknowledgement. Respect. Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line. She turned abruptly and walked away, leaving murmurs in her wake. The room exhaled as if a storm had passed. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence wash over me. Not triumph. Not gloating. Just presence. Power. Confidence earned, not borrowed. I realized then fully what it meant to be untouchable. Not because Adrian supported me. Not because his mother approved. Because I had become someone no whispers, no accusations, no attempts at manipulation could shake. I was steady. I was controlled. And for the first time, completely untouchable in my own right. The gala continued around me. Laughter, music, clinking glasses. But I felt insulated. Shielded by a calm I had forged myself. Vanessa might return. She might try again. But I knew this now. Silence, control, and measured truth were stronger than any public outburst she could muster. And I was ready for whatever came next. The office was quiet that evening, the city lights casting long shadows across my desk. Adrian appeared quietly, closing the door behind him. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice low. I looked up, wary but steady. "I admire you," he began. "I always have. But not just your work. You've changed. Grown. You've become someone I respect deeply." I nodded, keeping my expression calm. "And," his voice faltered slightly, "I love you. Not the woman you were when we first met, but the woman you've become." My heart skipped. I had imagined this moment in fragments. Hoped for it, feared it. "Adrian," I said softly, I hear you. I believe you." He stepped closer. "Then tell me you feel the same." I shook my head gently. "No, that's not how it works. I can't be chosen. I choose." He blinked, surprised. "Choose?" "Yes," I continued, steady. "I've worked too hard to become this person to lose myself again in someone else's decision. I don't want rescue. I want partnership. Equality." He exhaled slowly. "I understand. I want that too. An equal. Not someone I protect. Someone I walk beside. Someone who challenges me." I studied him, really looked at him. Vulnerable, honest, not perfect, but willing to meet me as an equal. "That's what I need," I said. "Not fear. Not dependence. Clarity. Respect. Partnership." He nodded, slowly, a quiet relief in his eyes. "And you have my full respect. Always." I felt the weight of the moment settle over us. The journey had been long. Painful. Angry. Transformative. "I choose you," I said finally. "But on my terms. Because I want to, not because I'm told to." His lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "Then I accept. On your terms. Fully." We sat there in quiet, letting the city hum outside, letting the past echo faintly but not dominate. No shouting. No pleading. No anger. Just understanding. Mutual respect. Clear intent. I realized in that moment how much had changed. How much I had changed. The woman who had yelled, trembled, and feared humiliation was gone. The woman who had learned control, power, and self-worth sat confidently, choosing love rather than letting it be chosen for her. Adrian reached for my hand. I allowed it. Not as a surrender. Not as dependency. But as a connection between equals. "That night," I whispered later, "I finally understood what it means to choose. To be fully yourself," he replied. "And to love," I said, "without losing myself in the process." We looked at each other, silently acknowledging the journey, the battles, the growth. And for the first time I felt whole. Not because of him. Not because of his mother's words. Not because of victory over Vanessa. Because of me. The decision was mine. And in that clarity I found love, on my terms. I stood in the boardroom, the sunlight streaming through the tall windows, warming the polished table. It was quiet, except for the low hum of the air conditioning and the soft shuffle of papers. I looked around. My nameplate gleamed, Senior Executive. Months ago I would have thought this impossible. My father's health had improved. Regular treatments, proper care, a little luck. I no longer carried the weight of constant fear. My student debt was gone, paid off through careful planning and steady work. Vanessa had resigned quietly. No dramatic confrontation. Just absence. The office moved on, but the echoes of her attempts at dominance faded slowly, leaving me unshaken. Adrian sat across from me, reviewing reports. Not with authority over me but alongside me. Steady. Equal. Supportive without interference. "Everything looks solid," he said softly, eyes flicking up to meet mine. "Good," I replied. "We've come a long way." He smiled faintly, and I realized that smile no longer carried judgment or distance. Just partnership. Later his mother walked in. She wrapped me in a hug, firm and warm. "You've done well," she said. "Not just here but in life. I'm proud of you." I smiled, feeling the weight of months, years even, lifting. I thought back to that day I had yelled at Adrian in front of everyone. The heat of anger, the shame that followed, the nights of tears. That moment felt like a different lifetime. A distant memory of someone I used to be. I had thought I needed revenge. Thought I needed to prove myself through confrontation. I didn't. What I needed was growth. I had strengthened myself. Shaped my mind, my voice, my presence. Learned control. Learned to wield power quietly. Learned that respect is earned, not demanded. Love had not saved me. Pain had. Pain had sharpened me, focused me, forced me to become someone I could respect in the mirror. I looked out the window at the city skyline. Lights reflecting in glass towers, each one a reminder of ambition, of battles won quietly. Adrian walked over and placed a hand gently on my shoulder. Not possessively. Not to shield me. But a touch of partnership. "You've changed everything," he said softly. I nodded. "No," I corrected. "I changed everything." He smiled. "And we did it together." I glanced around the room. The contracts, the reports, the plans. The quiet victories that had stacked up over months. I thought about Vanessa, about the whispered doubts and her failed attempts at undermining me. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt calm. I had faced betrayal, humiliation, and doubt, and emerged stronger. I had once shouted at the wrong millionaire. But in the end, I found the right version of myself. That was more than victory. That was freedom. I let out a slow breath, smiling softly. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of steady, deliberate power. Of love chosen, not forced. Of life lived on my terms. And that, finally, changed everything.